Hi guys, my name is Amit and welcome to my channel. In this video, we'll create a Vagrant box from scratch. When I say from scratch, we'll start creating a virtual machine, maybe using a provider like VMware, and then we'll save that virtual machine as a Vagrant box could be considered as a template to create my other virtual machines in future. Let's begin with this. I already have created a Medium article for that, which is what I'm going to refer here. So it's like very simple process. First, you have to install a VMware. Then you have to install the VMware desktop plugin so that the Vagrant can talk to that VMware provider. But before we start with the Vagrant, we have to have that virtual machine running. So let's go with the VMware and start creating our first virtual machine. So I'm going to go back here and start creating our first machine. To use this machine, I have to install operating system. The one that I'm using right now is the Ubuntu server. Most of the times, we will not use the GUI when we are going with the virtual machines. We'll use only CLI, command and interface it is known as. I already have downloaded this Ubuntu server. If you are on x86, you can download the x86 version of it. If not, if you are on the ARM, then you can download the ARM version of it. But make sure that you are having the ISO file ready. So let's go ahead with the VMware and start creating one. So let me start selecting this. Probably if I go back here, I could find the Ubuntu. Let's go here and let's start creating our virtual machine. Let me customize this and save it somewhere here. So I'll save this machine name as ubuntu.vmware VM it is known as. So let me go back to the processors and make sure that I'm having at least 2 processors and at least 4 GB of RAM. I'll be using this virtual machine later for creating our Docker Swarm and Kubernetes cluster. So it's better to have a good configuration machine. Also, please make sure that when you are going for a hard drive, you go to the advanced option and do not split into multiple files. Now, ultimately, when you are having this virtual machine ready, you want to convert that into a box. Lesser number of files will make the box with the lesser size. So better you do not split them. I'll create this virtual machine with 40 GB, something like that, and then we'll start installing the virtual machine in this. So it is as straightforward as it can be. So let's continue with that. It will ask a couple of questions like, yes, I want to install Ubuntu in this VMware. This Ubuntu is 24.04.1, which is the LTS edition of it. So we'll be continuing with the normal installation. There is nothing special about it. As you install as you install Ubuntu, you are going to follow the same instructions to do the job. English is the language I'll go for. Continue without updating. It's the latest one. I don't have to update anything. Use the same layout for the keyboard and the variant. And I'll be using, let's say, Ubuntu minimized version. I do not want to create a virtual machine that is having everything that my user would not need. So it's better just go for the minimized version. Let the user decide what kind of packages the user wants. This is asking me what is the network card that you are using, and I don't have any proxy address to go for, so it will go on internet simply and it will update our apt cache. So this apt cache will be later used to download, if needed, I'm saying, download the third-party providers or third-party libraries in this case. We don't need them, but still it is going to perform all these operations in between. Now, more important thing here is the creation of disk layout and the creation of user. At this point, I'll use the entire disk as is without customizing it. But if you want, you can customize it as per your disk management perspective. So I'll use it by default. I don't want to change anything. So let's continue with that. This is the important stage. When you are going to use this VMware machine and convert it into VMware box, later on VMware will talk to this machine using SSH. So it's better to create a user with the name Vagrant and with the password Vagrant. So I'll go back here and say Vagrant is the normal username. My server name is also Vagrant. You can call that server name as Ubuntu if you want. I mean, it depends on you. Ubuntu. Username must be Vagrant. Password is going to be Vagrant. That's it. That's a Vagrant. Oops. Vagrant. Yeah, it seems like it does not match. Vagrant. Oh, it's not matching. Why is it not matching? Vagrant. Yeah, finally. So I'm done with that. Let's go here. I don't want to install pro version of it, and probably installing OpenSSH is mandatory, because ultimately when you are done with that, Vagrant will talk to the VM via SSH. So it's important to install OpenSSH at the time of installation. I do not want to install any one of them, so better we can just continue and let it install. It will take few minutes depending on the speed of your machine. So be patient, let it complete, and then we'll continue further with the next step. Okay, it seems like it got installed now. Let's go and reboot this machine. It will put a message, press enter. That's it. The machine is now installed. So machine is ready, it's booting now. It will take a minute, and once it starts booting, or once it finishes booting, it will ask you to enter the username and password. If you can try this Vagrant, it should give you the command prompt here. Now it becomes very difficult for me to use this command prompt, so what I'm going to do right now is going to see like the IP address of it, which in my case is 172.16.140.139. so I'm going to directly jump on my machine's terminal, and then I can say SSH to 139. So it'll ask me, are you sure you want to log into that machine? I'm damn sure. So what it is asking me is the password, which is the Vagrant that we set last time. Okay, Vagrant. Okay, and what you see here is the command prompt of that virtual machine we just have installed. Now after this, you are going to customize your virtual machine. So just install whatever that you want to install. For example, I'm going to go back here and say sudo apt-get update, so I can update my apt cache. Just look for this. It's asking me to enter the password for Vagrant user. When we are using sudo, we have to disable that, but let's start with at least getting the apt cache updated, and then we'll see an option to disable and asking password for a Vagrant user. So that's a passwordless sudo that we will be configuring in a second. But before this, let me head back towards the Medium article. We already have done this part. We already have installed this. We just have updated the cache. Now we'll install all the required applications here. Now I am using the default ones, like which I know I'm going to use them, like Git, Vim, DKMS, or Linux headers. Another one is a build essential, which will install the C, C++, or even the make utility, so on and so forth. Tree and htop I'll be using later, so that's the reason I'm going to install all of these utilities. It's not hard and fast that you have to install everything. You just make sure that all the basic commands that you are going to use later, they are available, so that you don't have to keep on installing them again and again when you create a virtual machines using Vagrant. So consider this as a golden image, the image which will be converted into a box, and that box will be using, or the box will be used to create virtual machines in future. Okay, seems like it is done. Wonderful. Now last time I showed you where I used a sudo and it asked me to enter the password for Vagrant. Now when it happens with the Vagrant, it will not give you the prompt to enter the password, so I'm going to disable it. To disable this, we are going to use this Vagrant all no password all. This is the one which will disable the password for that Vagrant user when Vagrant will use sudo. We are using a utility called as a vi sudo, which generally is used for configuring a user as a sudo. Here by using -c, I'm just checking whether the syntax is okay, and it seems like it's a parsing okay. So passed okay, that means parsing is successful. So I can go ahead and execute the next command, which will create a file named Vagrant under sudoers.d under /etc. This command will add Vagrant all, means all for all the activities for sudo. We will ask, or rather operating system will ask no password for this user. So this is what we are configuring here. Once that is configured, it's important for me to configure the user Vagrant's public key. So what I'm going to do here is I'll just go here and say curl and this particular command. This is the Vagrant's public key. So generally when you go for configuring a passwordless authentication for SSH, a public key must be added into a file called as authorized keys. So what I see here on console, I'm going to copy this and paste it in vim /ssh/authorized keys and just paste that here. That's it. So all you can see here is I'm adding a public key for Vagrant user. So later on when I say Vagrant SSH, it will not ask me any password. It will directly allow me to access that machine. Okay. Now seems like everything is working fine. I'm just going to use the history command to clear whatever that I've used so far, so that when the virtual machine will be created, it will have no history maintained. Just go and say sudo power off. That means we are done with installation. Now we are just going to shut our machine down. If I go to VMware, you can see the machine is shut down. Now the next step is like we have to convert this virtual machine to the Vagrant box. Now how do I do this? I already have installed Vagrant, so this step I think I can directly skip. I can jump directly to the building the Vagrant box. First you have to go to that directory where you have created that virtual machine. So if I go to mine, it's like slash volume slash Ubuntu VMware, I think virtual machines. And if I look at Ubuntu VMware, that's okay. This is the VMware machine that we just have created. It contains everything. It contains VMX, it contains NVRAM, it contains the VMDK, this is our disk, so on and so forth. Now the first step here is like we will defrag that VMDK. VMDK stands for virtual machine disk. So here when I say -D, this is the disk manager, disk manager, virtual disk manager. When I say D, we are defragmenting it. Then we are shrinking the size so that when I create the box, it will reduce the disk size. So -K is used for shrinking, -D is used for defragmenting. So once it is done, we will head towards creating a metadata. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Vagrant can work with multiple providers. So which provider this box is going to be used later in the future is what we have to configure here in the metadata. So I'm going to use this command cat eof. We are creating a file called as metadata.json, and here we are saying the provider I'm using for this virtual machine or this box, the one which I'm going to create, is VMware Desktop. So it is important for us to mention what kind of provider has to be used when someone will use this box in future. So this is a VMware Desktop for us. Now we'll create the virtual or rather we will create the box, Vagrant box for us. It's simple. tar command. Tar stands for tape archive. This is going to get everything in this directory along with the metadata, and we'll create a file called as ubuntu.box. Now this is the name of the file that I have chosen. You decide which one that you want to go for. Ultimately the extension is a .box. This is the archived file which contains everything a virtual machine requires plus the metadata.json, and in that metadata we are specifying what is the provider it has to be used when someone wants to use this Vagrant box in future. So it is building that Vagrant box. Once that Vagrant box is ready, we'll add that to the Vagrant box list. So it will take a minute or two. Once it is done, we'll go ahead and add that into our box list. Wonderful, it's done. So now if you look at this, we are having a file called as ubuntu.box. This is the box file that we have just created. Now I want to add this box into my Vagrant cache. So, or Vagrant box list, you can call it as. This is the command, Vagrant box add, give a temporary name. So for example, I will give a temporary name as Ubuntu 24, for example. And the ubuntu.box is the file that we just have created. Now this command essentially will add ubuntu.box with the name Ubuntu 24 in my box list. So on this machine, if I want to create a virtual machine later with this particular box, I will have to specify name of my box is like Ubuntu 24. It will take a couple of more minutes, and once this is done, we are ready to start using that box. Awesome, it is done. So now if I look at this, probably if I use the command say Vagrant box list, you will see that earlier I was having Fedora and Ubuntu. Now I'm having Ubuntu 24. This is what we were expecting, you know. So I wanted to create that box. The box is ready. My Vagrant can recognize this, and I'm set. So next time onwards, if I want to create a virtual machine, which we have to keep on doing it for other videos in this series, we will be using this Ubuntu 24. Okay, that's all in this video. You have seen how to create the box file from scratch. We'll use this box file throughout the entire sessions in this series. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you soon in the next video.